world events unravelling, and many of us once again rethinking how we can reapproach our new normal. Today, we'll be diving into things you should know about our changed new world. I'm Colin Day, Managing Director of EMEA, and you're listening to Oktopost's original discussion series. Ladies and gentlemen, it's podcast time. I'm Colin Day, the Managing Director at Oktopost, and I'm joined today by Dan Swift. Dan is the CEO of Empire Selling. Dan, welcome to the conversation.
Colin, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem, Dan. Look, just to give our listeners a little bit of your background, I've been stalking you socially, right? Although I think I know you for a number of years by now, right? But look, you set up LinkedIn Sales Navigator, or the technology behind LinkedIn Sales Navigator, back in 2012. And that's when you and I first met, when I was at SunGard and I was struggling with our sales team over there. So like, we were embarking upon this thing called social selling. We were looking for some technology to help us. LinkedIn came along, they rolled you out and brought you into the conversation to really sell me on what is this thing called social selling, and how can LinkedIn as a platform help in that conversation. I know from the time that you moved on, right? You weren't at LinkedIn forever, but you moved on subsequently, moved to Sprinkler, helped set up and lead their sales team over in the Americas. And then from there, you moved on and created your own company, the company we find you at today, Empire Selling. And Empire Selling is a training and consulting company that helps organizations bring social skills to their sales and marketing team, right?
Yep, that's right.
Cool. So what else does Empire Selling do? So why leave? Why go out and go into the big brave world of setting up your own company when, quite frankly, you could have sat on your laurels and done it for someone else for forever and a day, right?
I love it. So it was the best sales job I've ever done. Was talking to my wife.
Selling me?
Talking to my wife about leaving a role as a divisional vice president for one of the fastest growing software companies in the world, and saying, "Yeah, I want to go out on my own." And bless her, she's an amazing woman, and she basically said, "Yeah, you've got to do it. It's your passion." So what made me do it? I'm a servant leader, right? I've dedicated my life to helping others be the best version of themselves. And when I got to that level as a divisional vice president, I'm second line manager, and I'm too far away from the coalface, right? I really wanted to impact people's lives. So I got to where I thought I wanted to be career-wise, and it wasn't what I wanted. And what I do now, we've trained more than 10,000 people in 2 years on how to leverage social media and digital tools in their sales process. So I've impacted directly their lives and the lives of their families. And if I can continue to do that and do it more and more and more and more, I can have a much bigger impact on the world. So that was the reason for me wanting to walk away from that DVP position. I didn't say the word.
That's why you need a cup of coffee, Dan.
Exactly.
It's early for you in the day. It's late for me in the afternoon. So, actually, that's a good point, right? Englishman, English accent, but you're not actually sitting in the UK, are you?
No. So I'm in New York, and I moved over here 2006, actually with an English privately owned software company. And I moved to New York on secondment for 2 years and fell in love with the place. So fast forward 16 years, or whatever the number is. I'm a geography major, but I'm still here and loving the US.
Geography major, not a maths major. And that's maths, not math.
Right? Yeah, there you go. Thank you for that.
Hey, Dan, so is that why it's called Empire Selling? Because you're in New York?
So yeah, New York, Empire State, right? So I wanted to do something that attached to the state that I've grown to love. And when I was at LinkedIn, the LinkedIn office is in the Empire State Building. So there's a two-prong there. And then the third one was, I believe, for true enterprise selling, salespeople have to build their empires within organizations, right? You've got to go and identify your buyers, your decision makers, your influencers, your coaches, and just really build that groundswell for you to be able to do enterprise sales. And I figured that I needed a name for methodology that made sense for a salesperson too, that you could, build a name for. So yeah, they're the reasons.
Gotcha. So Dan, you mentioned 10,000 plus people that Empire Selling has trained over the last 12 months. The types of organizations that you go into and the types of sales teams that you work with, it's not just multinationals, like huge conglomerates, right? It's like you're down to smaller organizations as well. You're covering the whole spectrum, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to. And that was over 2 years, by the way. So 10,000 people in 2 years. But yeah, absolutely.
My wife says I like to embellish the facts. So.
I don't want anyone listening to that going, "Wow, how's he done that?" But yeah, no, it's a lot of people. But I mean, we set out initially to test the market, see where people have the most challenges and problems, and it was with some of the larger companies and the true enterprise sales organizations. Maybe with longer sales cycles and complex buying processes that people have to go through. And but then that being said, people have found us and come to us, through my network in particular, and maybe it's smaller sales organizations. Maybe they've got 20 or 30 people, and they've got the same challenges. They don't have the brand recognition, which is an additional challenge that they're trying to maybe crack into new markets and compete with really well-known companies. So yeah, we're working with all sorts of different companies.
And Dan, I love the fact that you said it came through my network, some of those, right? There truly is power, right, in the network. We used to say that at SunGard all those years ago, right? That the power was in the network. It wasn't the fiber that connected computer systems together, or banks to exchanges, right, or trading houses to each other. It really is in the people effect, right? So
Totally.
Social selling today, right? It's like you need to be active where your clients are and active when your clients are active, right? After all, statistics from the likes of CEB will tell you that customers are 57% of the way through their purchasing process, even before they've engaged with a salesperson. So what is so hard about social selling? Actually, scrap that. What is social selling?
Yeah. You know what it is, and I'll tell you what it isn't, first of all. So I think there's a massive misconception with social selling that once you have done something with your profile, let's say on LinkedIn, and by the way, people sometimes think it's just LinkedIn for social selling, but once you've done something with your profile and maybe you've shared some content, that's what social selling is emceed. But it actually isn't, right? Social selling, in my opinion, is just selling now. All of our target buyers, they're on LinkedIn. I mean, there's nearly 700 million people on LinkedIn. If we're going to focus just on that channel, there's a pretty high likelihood that the people you're selling to are there in B2B selling. So it's learning a prescriptive process to go and identify who your buyers are at your target accounts, figure out the best way of engaging with them. So it might be through the network, might be through someone you know, or it might be through maybe content that they've shared, or maybe it's going direct, but it's going direct with a point of view and leveraging what you've learned about that person, and then starting a conversation. But I think also that's where the misconceptions are as well, where that's all it is, where it's just prospecting and it's getting the meeting. But in our opinion, we call it digital selling. It's way broader. It's taking the sale through the sales process to close it into the customer journey. So keeping those buying committees engaged, making sure that they stay with you through the sales cycle, make sure you continually educate them with the right content through the sales cycle, pulling in other people from different areas of the organization, using video in your process, using different channels. I mean, there's so much to it. We could do another podcast just dissecting all of that, but there's a lot to it.
We'll have you back.
There's a lot to it. Yeah.
Cool. So Dan, you mentioned multi channels there, right? You mentioned LinkedIn, and you mentioned that hey, a lot of people just focus on LinkedIn. How important do you think in the B2B world? How important are the likes of Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, or over in Asia, the likes of WeChat? What are you seeing with regards to the sales teams that you work with, and the importance that those sales and marketing associates are placing upon those other channels?
So I break it down into two ways of thinking about it. I think about it from a research perspective, and then I think about it from an engagement perspective, and we're talking specifically about sellers. So for research, you can go and look across all social channels to identify things that that company care about and are pushing out onto their own channels, but also about what the people that you're trying to sell to care about. And a lot of people are active on Twitter. A lot of people are sharing a point of view on Twitter. A lot of people are putting a lot of content out on Twitter. So you can go and learn about people, which is the research component of social selling. But then you can then take what you learn and then use that in the engagement component on other channels. So you might see that the chief information officer at the target company pushing a load of great content out on Twitter. You learn about that individual, and then you create a video. And you've got no warm introduction pass to this CIO. So you create a video, you share a point of view, you explain how you believe the organization can help, but you start that message or that video with what you've learned about him or her from that Twitter channel, right? And obviously you can look across other social channels. We teach, once you've built the core relationship and you've built trust and credibility, then you've earned the right at that point to have a conversation and just kind of say, by the way, I see you on Facebook, we should be friends, but only get to that point in the buyer's journey once you've, the time is right. So much so, the team from Prudential came to my wedding, right? So, it's that kind
That's
of
social.
level of trust. Yeah, it's so there's you can do a lot across multiple channels.
So you mentioned two things I want to pick up on there.
Mm-hmm.
The first, Dan, right? You said that people you're selling to, right? It's like from a people you're selling to perspective. So the buyer,
Mm-hmm.
what do buyers expect from sales teams today?
Mm-hmm. To know the company that they're selling to, right? So oftentimes you as a salesperson should have done your research and know if it's a publicly traded company, right? What's in the 10K of the US and what's going on in annual reports and like big strategic initiatives and those kind of things. That should be expected if you're doing enterprise selling, for sure. And to some degree, actually,
Oh, we just
doesn't
lost
matter
your
what you're
network,
selling,
Dan.
right? You should know about the company. You should also
you just
know.
lost your network then.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay, so what should they know? They should know a lot about the enterprise organization that you're selling into. You should also know a lot about your own company, right? So you cannot, and forget social and digital for a sec, you can't find yourself in a position where you're trying to sell to someone and that person knows more about your organization than you do. Right, so it sounds crazy, but when you join an organization and as you stay with that organization, you've got to continually invest in yourself to learn and learn and learn more about your own company. And then I think it's the other part of this, which I think people maybe need to work on, is how they engage, right? Engaging in a human way and in a way in which it's going to be memorable and different. You've got to differentiate yourself from everyone else who's trying to get airtime with that person. So yeah, you've got to be educated, but you've got to show up in a unique and different way.
Gotcha. And the other thing was trust and credibility, right? So, trust has always been a key part of the sales process, right? People buy from people after all. I recently saw some statistics out there on the internet. Don't ask me where they came from. I can't remember that at the moment. But it was 87% of B2B buyers would favor, look more favorably on an introduction that came in through their social network or the networks that they're plugged into. So trust and credibility is key there, right? What strategies are Empire selling, coaching to its clients about, gaining that trusted advisor status, or even taking a step back and building the seller's own personal brand, i.e. that credibility aspect, in their given field? What are some of the strategies that you guys are coaching today?
Yeah, so we see this as the fundamentals of what we do before we kind of get into more of like the advanced curriculum. So we think of three things. The first one definitely is your identity, your profile. So if we're staying on LinkedIn, there's a lot of talk about like what that actually entails, but I dumb it down to the point where if a buyer looks at your profile, they're going to judge you within a couple of seconds as to whether or not they think that you're going to be able to help them or not. So yes, you've got to look the part, you've got to definitely be on brand, but that person is going to quickly skim through what you say about yourself and your company. So it better be on point, it better hit all the right value propositions for the people who are going to be looking at your profile. So that's part one. Definitely just tactical, remove any things on your profile that bang on about performance against quota, president's clubs and those kind of things, because guess what, that's a massive turn off to people. You just reminded people that you are a salesperson. So that's part one. Part two, from the trust and credibility perspective, is your network. So we're teaching how to, as a salesperson, build a network out quickly, but over time as well. So you're connected to all of your executives, your board members, your cross-functional partners, your fellow sales people and sales leaders, really anyone internally within your organization that might have a network that you can ultimately leverage at some point. Because again, to your point, you want to get walks in the door through people that trust you, and vice versa. And then the final piece is that a lot of what you all are doing, right? Teaching sellers how to share the right content at the right time on the right network. So you're educating your network on how you as an organization can help them, but also what you as a salesperson can do in your experience. So you've got to have a point of view as well. So all of those three things, and that last one on the content side, not just if I was with my content strategy, if all I did was share empire content 24/7, it would have the reverse effect, right? So we actually teach 50% of what you share can and should be about empire selling in this example. 25% should be about the industry that you're selling into, so third-party reputable sources, content that your network will benefit from. And then 25% should be what you care about professionally. So I do a lot of work in terms of elevating women in business, a lot of work in terms of compassionate leadership, and a lot about helping veterans transition out of the military back into civilian life. So that's my final 25%. And that's how you build a brand and a name for yourself. And then those three things continually kind of interlink, right? Because you share great content. Someone's like, oh, that's interesting. Who shared this? They come to your profile, they check it out, they see that you got a lot of people in common, they learn about you, and they reach out. That's one way of, all of this kind of coming to come back to you as a salesperson.
I love that, Dan. It's like 50, 25, 25. As you know me, I love a stat. So having three in one sentence there is amazing. Just going back and touching on something, right? It's like you mentioned building networks, right? And that's some of the stuff that you guys coach on. What are the best ways for someone to go about building their social network?
So if you haven't been doing something like this for a while, think about it retrospectively. Just go back, and if you still have business cards from conferences, great. But if not, just go back through meetings that you've had, who attended those meetings.
You're showing your age now, mate. Business cards.
Yeah, seriously.
What are they? Conferences? What are they?
I know, right? In the old days. But any sort of interaction you've had at any point, even emails that you've been exchanging with prospects currently, we say as soon as you've had a meaningful, this is the important, meaningful business or personal interaction, same day, right? Connect with those people on LinkedIn, send that connection request, customize it though, because just because you've had a great meeting, they might not look at their invitations on LinkedIn for 2 or 3 weeks, and you've got to remind them of the conversation that you've had when they accept you into your network, right? But I say personal as well, because the number of times that, again, when we were going to sporting events, before the pandemic, right? I remember going to a baseball game, was watching the Yankees play, and sat next to a dad, him and I were having a beer, didn't know the guy, ended up chatting to him, he's on LinkedIn, we connect, he introduces me literally 2 weeks later, the chief marketing officer of a company that's now a customer of ours, right? So it's connect every single day. And then we're finding a way to remember to do that as well, because it's so obvious, yet life gets in the way, right? And then you have a great meeting and you connect 3 weeks later, then the moment's gone, right?
And it is all about being in the moment, right, Dan? Yeah. So quite easily the moment slips away from us. Dan, look, what have you seen regarding the power of social and the input it has in the sales process? Do you have any success metrics that you can share with us?
Sure. So lots of different ones. So a lot of companies look at it in terms of, can it help me generate pipeline for starters? So we've got companies who literally 2 hours off the back of the training that we ran, and this was just a launch training, their sales organization that was selling into financial services firms, they got 100 calls and conversations, right, with decision makers and influencers at their target companies. And there's about 80 to 85 people in that sales organization. So everyone pretty much struck gold with someone at their target accounts just by following some principles they just learned a couple of hours ago. In terms of shortening sales cycles and then maximizing deal sizes as well. So we work with SAP. Over 12 months, we managed to quadruple their average order size in one of the cloud businesses that we were working with. And then rep productivity as well. So SAI Global, they did some work with us, and they're attributing 20% improvement in performance rep productivity, right, over 12 months, but also 35% increase to the bottom line in terms of revenue. So we're now, because as a business, we're 2.5 years into our existence as an organization. Companies have now gone through that first 12 months. They're coming up to 18 months with us, and we're really impacting, what companies are doing. So it's exciting. You think about the lives as well of those people. It's great.
And that you can all attribute to the social factor, right? So
totally.
How's the buying process evolved over recent months? And, here we are coming out the back of, hopefully coming out the back of what is hopefully a one-time event, right? Something that you and I have never experienced in our lifetime, and hopefully something that we don't experience too quickly again. But how have you seen the buying process and coupled with that the selling process change, say over the last 6 months?
It's interesting, right? So before the pandemic, all the talk was consensus purchase, and it still is. 6 to 10 people in the average B2B buying process, still the case. And I think in the last 12 weeks, we've seen obviously decisions slow because people, are uncomfortable oftentimes making certain decisions during what was, uncertain times, as people are calling it. But in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've seen that change, and people kind of coming out of hibernation a little bit and beginning to make those business decisions. But what's been interesting is that consensus purchase and that collaborative decision making internally, that's just become more intense, because people budgets are being scrutinized more, and how people spend money is under the watchful eye of the CFO. So that's definitely something that we've seen. And then in terms of how buyers need to, how salespeople need to address that, I always love, if you don't indulge me. So I might be a typical buyer, right, for many salespeople listening to this call. 40, how old am I? 43, I think I am. So I'll check myself.
Oh, you're still a baby.
I'm still a baby.
You still got your own hair.
Right? Yeah, my wife and I are working full time, 2 kids, 4 and 2, homeschooling, virtual stuff, the whole works. So you try and sell to me in a traditional way, right? Phone, cold email, you're not going to get eyes on that at all. However, if you show up in my world via, warm introduction or through someone that I trust, or you're thoughtful and smart about your approach, and you send me a video, but it's really, bang on in terms of what would appeal to me. And again, I share all sorts of things on social. Show up in a way that is relevant and human, and you're going to get a response. So the sales organizations were really thinking about that, but then how to continue that initial experience for the buyer through that buyer journey, right? It's all cool and creative to show up in that way. But if you then go back to old school techniques and tried and tested stuff that doesn't work anymore for traditional selling, then the buyer, is going to go elsewhere. So you got to be thoughtful.
And I know over at Empire Selling, there are 3 things that you guys focus heavily on, right? Is compassion, empathy, and being human. Surely that, that comes into everything that you've just said, right? It's like, taking your example of you as the buyer, right? And you having, should we say, a lot of other distractions in your life right now,
Yeah.
right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's about that relevance, right? It's like,
Yeah.
if I can display relevance, if I can show that compassion and that humanity, then, that is also something that's going to pique your interest and give you another reason to listen, surely, right?
Totally. Absolutely. And people listening to this call might be like, well, I lead an SDR organization. There's no way that we can slow down to that degree to understand our buyers and then customize messages in the way that this guy's talking about and blah, blah, blah. I would say you absolutely can and should, and slow down. Slow everything down, right? Because if you're sending 100 messages out through some sort of cadencing technology to your target buyers, and you're doing it in a way that isn't anything that we've just discussed, then you're probably hurting your brand as well in the medium to long term. So slow down, look at what your SDRs and your BDRs are actually trying to solve for, which is meetings with decision makers that your account executives can then take and run with, right? And increase those conversion rates by slowing down and engaging in a better way, right? And then you do less damage to your brand as well as an organization in the medium and long term. So again, for me, it's bringing human back into the sales process, but just teaching companies how to slow down.
Yeah, so Dan, on that note, look, it'd be remiss of me not to mention technology. I come from a technology company. I come from a technology background, right? Actually, I was a banker before I joined SunGard all those years ago, but let's not go there. So I come from a technology background, right? What role does technology play in all of this?
I mean, it's huge, right? So you have to have the right tech stack. So we'll go into companies and look at what they have in place. Now, on the content sharing side of things, you can do things organically. You can as a salesperson, but let's make it easy for salespeople to be successful when it comes to that aspect of it. So Oktopost for us is a no-brainer. It makes perfect sense. But I think the right tech as well.
Did you just plug Oktopost without me even asking you to plug Oktopost?
I love you, man.
Oh, wow.
And then
Fiver in the post, mate.
Yeah, there you go. I thought it was a tenner.
Okay, right. So there you go. I've undersold you.
But I think it comes back to teaching your salespeople how to use tech. So listen, whether it's Oktopost, whether it's Sales Navigator, whatever the tech is that you're using, we love Vidyard for video, whatever it is, it comes down to teaching sellers how to use it effectively, how to weave it into the sales process so they know exactly what to do at different times, making sure your sales leaders know how to coach and develop your people using all of this stuff, because if your sales leaders don't, that's where it dies in the vine. So there's a whole load of different approaches. The tech is critical. Having the wrong tech and having sellers use the wrong tech in this world as well is something that you've got to be careful about as well. And listen to your people. Sometimes people will come to you because they know, my head of sales, Jordan Shavika, he is incredible at this. He'll be like, you've got to check out this tech. It's the latest and greatest. I can't stay on top of everything, right? That's unrealistic. So listen to your people and don't dismiss them just because they're newer into the market and you've got your 20 years of sales leadership experience and they've got 2 or 3. Listen to your people.
Yeah, and I always say that technology's the enabler, right? It's not the be all to end all; it's the enabler. For me, it's all about measurement, right? In so much as being able to measure, whether it be the power of social backing, lead scoring and attribution modeling, but it's being able to measure what you do. Because if you can't measure it, what's the point of doing it, right? It's like if you can't demonstrate a return yet through the application, why do it? Why invest in that tool, right? And I also think it's an ecosystem. So you talked about Vidyard, for example. You could talk about Salesforce. You talked about LinkedIn. You could talk about Marketo, Eloqua, Pardot, the marketing automation platforms of the world. It's how all of that gels together in order to support the marketing and sales process. In actual fact, let's just call it the sales process, because selling's a team sport, and an important part of that team is marketing, right? So Dan, couple of questions for you before we wrap up, right? It's like this podcast is all about stuff, that people should know in this ever-changing world? What's the one piece of advice? And it doesn't even have to be like about sales, but what's the one piece of advice that you would give the audience around things to think of, be mindful of in the world that's changing around them?
Wow. One thing.
And we could do a whole podcast series on that one, mate. Gotcha.
Yeah, seriously. So I would say that because of platforms like LinkedIn and everything we've discussed today, the world actually becomes a really small place, and it's incredible who knows who. So be kind, right, to each other. Be good, put goodness out into the world, share content, like do it because you want to help other people be successful, and do it because you've got a greater purpose. And it is amazing, like absolutely amazing what comes back as a result because of who knows who and who's connected to who. And take that approach, bringing it right back to social. You do that, you connect with all the right people, you share the right content, you have the right mindset about why you're doing it, and then you start asking for introductions of people. Oh my goodness, you'll get walked in the door to all sorts of people who previously just wouldn't have been accessible.
That's some great advice, mate. Great advice. Look, I've got one question right out of left field for you. Yeah. Tell us one exciting thing about Dan Swift, Mr. Swift, that isn't on your LinkedIn profile.
Exciting thing? I'll tell you some one fun thing.
Yeah, it has to be exciting. Yeah, it's like, don't give me any boredom stuff, mate.
I think it is. So my 2-year-old and I, so my daughter, she's called Carrie, she's 2. Biggest personality. She basically runs the house. And we have a 20-minute dance class, her and I, every evening. So we're working already on our daddy-daughter dance for a wedding. And we're just nailing the moves early. So by the time he gets to a wedding, we crush it.
Well, that is dedication, right? It's like, that is dedication. Dan, our time together is coming to an end, my friend. Thank you so much for your insights. But just before we go, where can the listeners find more about you, your team, and all of the great stuff you're doing over at Empire Selling? Definitely. Thank you for asking. So follow us on social, right? We're on all the channels you'd expect. Find us on LinkedIn for sure. You'll find me on LinkedIn. And then go to the website, so empireselling.com. You'll learn everything that we do in terms of all the programs and everything that you can do to potentially help you achieve whatever goals you got. Great. Dan, what's the corporate Twitter handle? Empire Selling. There you go. Just getting the publicity out there for you, my friend. Hey, appreciate it. Dan Swift, friend. Thank you so much for joining us on this session. It's like I found it very enlightening. Hopefully all of our listeners did as well. They know where to find you. They know where to socially stalk you. Dan Swift the man, Dan Swift the brand, Dan Swift, Empire Selling. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Take care.